What's going on, everybody? My name is Gianni, and today we have a very special episode because it is a very special time of the year. That's right, it's our 2024 Game of the Year list. Now, 2024 was a banger for releases, and it definitely wasn't easy narrowing down a concise list of 5 titles. I think there were so many great options, some huge surprises, as well as a handful of disappointments, depending on who you ask. So today I wanted to talk about my top 5 games of last year, and also give some extra flowers to my favorite backlog experiences at the end of the video. I don't want to waste any more time, so let's dive right in. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown came out at the top of last year, and when I first saw the reveal trailer at Summer Games Fest 2023, I was in attendance at the show and I was immediately floored. This game has so much sauce. That's really the best way to put it. The art style is incredible. The combat is frustratingly difficult but rewarding. The platforming puzzles are even more frustrating, but man, when you finally get down the rhythm of jumps and strafes and dives to complete something you've been working at for an hour, what a feeling. The story is serviceable. It definitely wasn't anything to write home about, but the characters were well acted, the motivations were believable, and that's all you can really ask for. I feel like when the story is simple enough, the acting can really elevate it to the next level, and the cast did some awesome work here. The protagonist has a lot of really fun moments, but the cast of immortals that you're spending the majority of the game picking off one by one just steal the show. I also wanted to point out that this game is kind of a return to the franchise's side-scrolling Metroidvania roots, which I know some folks were a little skeptical of at first. I remember my first introduction to Prince of Persia was on PC in the early 90s, so seeing this kind of return to form was super exciting for me. I'm not really the biggest Metroidvania guy, but man, it works so well here, and I had a blast uncovering new secrets and treasures and hidden bosses on the map as I progressed through the game. Now, I know what you're gonna say. Why does he have a DLC in his top 5? You have to play 900 hours of the base. Okay, I don't care. Okay, I don't. Here's the thing. I started my Souls-like journey this year with Elden Ring, so I kind of had the loophole of playing Elden Ring proper and then immediately jumping into Shadow of the Erdtree. But if you take this DLC on its own merits as a 50-plus hour experience with its own separate level progression system, a fully recognized story, industry-leading voice acting, and a massive suite of new weapons, abilities, and baddies to fight, I think you can make the case that Shadow of the Erdtree deserves recognition among any Game of the Year contenders from last year. It's the same way I felt about Cyberpunk 2077's Phantom Liberty campaign, and I'm sticking to that. You know, you do have the typical level of Souls-like jank when it comes to the user interface and the head-scratching co-op design that does everything to dance around being dedicated multiplayer, but FromSoft continues to prove time and time again that their attention to environmental storytelling is unmatched by any of their peers. And when you couple that with one of the most fully fleshed out campaigns I've seen in a long time, with dozens of hours of new gameplay, you have the formula for a masterpiece of a title. Okay, I admittedly took a really long time to jump on the Balatro bandwagon. It wasn't until November of last year, shortly after the game made its way to mobile, that I took the plunge, and I am hooked in the best way possible. This game is like drugs. It's crazy. I have never played anything that gave me the one more run feeling quite like this. It's a roguelike, it's a deck builder, it just feels so good to play. The game has no story to speak of, and it's essentially just a modified version of poker, but that's just at a surface level. Balatro shines with its Joker mechanic. Different combos of Jokers in different orders produce different effects. And playing hands that synergize with those effects is a trial and error process that kind of keeps you on your toes and constantly re-strategizing over and over. I have over 50 hours played in this game, and I am still just now finding new mechanics. It's a complex experience delivered in a simple package, and it's easy to think that this is just another game for your phone, but trust me when I say that Balatro is worth your time. Even watching clips just doesn't do it justice. Once you feel that point ticker catch fire for the first time, I promise you'll understand why everybody is talking about this game. Developed by Team Asobi out of Japan, Astrobot is joy exemplified. Every single minute spent playing this game, I had a constant grin on my face. The main hero and all the supporting bots are incredibly charming, with callbacks to hundreds of games from PlayStation's history. And look, I'll admit that as somebody who grew up with the PlayStation since its inception, the nostalgia factor was definitely a cheat code. But none of that really matters if the gameplay isn't tight. And man, let me tell you, Astrobot is up there with some of the most highly regarded platforming mascots. The movement feels great, the combat is satisfying, the bosses are some of the most fun encounters I've had in recent memory, with different mechanics that play out in unique and interesting ways. The challenge levels are difficult but fair, never overstaying their welcome, but always pushing you to rinse and repeat till you nail your rhythm. The story isn't exactly Shakespearean, but it's simple and it's fun, and that's all it really needs to be. In short, Astrobot made me feel like a kid again, and I smiled through every second of the ride. Okay, so before we get into my number one game of the year for 2024, I wanted to touch on a few titles that really shined in my backlog last year. These are games that I might have missed when they initially came out, but I had the opportunity to play through them in my downtime between new releases, and I was extremely impressed. Okay, yeah, I know. Why did it take me so long to get to Bloodborne? Commonly considered an all-timer amid 5 generations of PlayStation consoles. Look, I just wasn't the Soulsborne guy, okay? I didn't want to get good at anything. But a friend of mine encouraged me to go back to Elden Ring when Erdtree came out, and I gave it the old college try after numerous attempts in previous years, and it finally clicked. So once I got that out of the way, I had to have more, and Bloodborne was always on my radar since its release because I love that gothic, Lovecraft, horror vibe, so it was an easy next choice. The faster, more aggressive gameplay than Elden Ring proved challenging, but I really enjoyed the change of pace, and once I got the hang of it, I could not put it down, even though this guy and his whole boss encounter can go straight to hell. Also, I wasn't expecting the multiple layers of storytelling that are just not made apparent by the game's marketing. So without spoiling too much, if you have never played Bloodborne, make the time this year. You won't regret it. Lies of P is a game with a premise that, I'm not gonna lie, makes me chuckle every time I talk about it. It's a Souls-like retelling of Carlo Collodi's novel, The Adventures of Pinocchio. Yeah, Pinocchio. The story's full of twists and turns that land a bit more on the nose than its inspirations, but in some super interesting and unexpectedly emotional ways. NeoWiz Games mixes up the tried and true FromSoft combat formula with this really cool handle system, where you gain the ability to mix and match blades and blade handles to craft your own combos of weapons with different abilities and stats that cater to your individual playstyles. It's a fun twist that offers that little extra layer of customization that I love to see in these kinds of games, and it also makes build crafting especially fun. The game also has an incredible suite of boss battles, including a mind-numbing final encounter for the bugs. Little Nightmares actually came at the recommendation of my daughter, who had played the first level or two when she brought me in to sit down and try it out with her. And on my first session, I knew that this was something special. Tarsier Studios was definitely in their bag when they made these set pieces. They're simultaneously disgusting and beautiful and keep you intrigued enough to keep searching for the next thing that'll gross you out, but wanting more. The bosses bring an addicting sense of dread and panic as you maneuver through this kind of cat and mouse adventure, trying to escape the Maw, which is a massive ship in the middle of the ocean with a very dark backstory. It might not seem like it initially, but this game made my jaw drop during some of its major story beats. So much so that as soon as I rolled credits, I immediately purchased the sequel. Little Nightmares 2 offers up pretty much the exact same formula as the first game, with the addition of a few small platforming mechanics, but one thing I can't stress enough without giving away too much is that these two games are best played back to back as one experience. The environmental storytelling in these titles, the way that they reference each other, the overarching narrative, it truly rewards you if you're paying attention. And with both of them clocking in no more than 6 or 7 hours, you've got an easily digestible 15-hour experience with one of my favorite stories in years. All right, now that we have our backlog out of the way, let's dive into the final entry of this list and my number one game of the year. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. All right, I have to get this off my chest. I had Astrobot slotted for my number one spot for a while after completing it. I used this analogy on Twitter the other day that Astrobot is like an 11-track album with no skips. And Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is like a 15-track album with 11 perfect songs. Take that for what you will. But the more I really put pen to paper to figure out which title truly deserved that top spot in my book, my heart kept telling me Rebirth. Final Fantasy VII is a franchise within a franchise, and I'm a massive fan of both the series at large and the multiple spin-offs that the original game has produced. So it's entirely possible that this is the love of Final Fantasy speaking, but Rebirth 100% nails everything it sets out to do. The sweeping narrative is as epic as it's ever been. The action RPG mechanics are some of, if not the best I've ever experienced in a game. The environments are stunningly gorgeous with so much to discover and get lost in. The multitude of mini-games are goofy but fun and addicting, and the soundtrack is easily the most gorgeous compilation of well-known themes, remixed and redone in ways that feel both familiar and surprising. But the real draw to Final Fantasy VII as a franchise that holds especially true with Rebirth is the cast of characters. Square Enix had and still has the monumental challenge of making you care about Cloud and the gang, whether this is your first time here or if you've been around for 30 years like I have. And let me tell you, they did it. Even as somebody who knows this story, there are moments between characters that manage to make me laugh and cry and yell at my screen. I recognize that Rebirth is not a perfect game. It's a little long in the tooth. Some of the story beats are a bit divisive, and even the graphical performance was rough at launch. But what Square Enix delivered in this experience, one that keeps giving you emotional and gut-wrenching moments even after 80 hours, is one I will never forget. And that's why it's my game of the year for 2024. And there you have it, my top 5 games of last year, with a little bit of love for the backlog as well. What about you? What were your favorite experiences of 2024? I'd love to hear what you think and what I might have missed in the comments below. And if you'd like to hear more thoughts on what I'm playing and what I'm excited for next, don't forget to follow me at Gianni DeCrosta on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. As always, my name is Gianni, and we'll see you on the next one.